Hi, I'm Cailey, a librarian here at Mentor Public Library.
And I'm Meg, also a librarian, and welcome to this week's edition of All Booked Up with Cailey and Meg, where each time we give you different book recommendations on a specific theme. This time, Cailey and I are really excited to share with you some of the winners of the American Library Association's 2023 Youth Media Awards. So they honor every year books published within the last year in a bunch of different categories, and we're going to be looking at some of those today.
Yes, and it is always the library world being a buzz whenever these awards are announced. So, we wanted to share a few that we were excited about today too. And all of the books that we're going to talk about with you are available at the library as well as online with your library card for free with Libby and Hoopla. Meg, do you want to go first?
Yes, sure, absolutely. So my first award we're going to be looking at today is the Mildred L. Batchelder Award. And this award is given to the book published within the last year that has been translated from a language other than English and published in a country other than America. And the book is called Just a Girl, A True Story of World War II by Leah Levy. And this is a charming and also at times harrowing look at World War II through the eyes of a 6-year-old Jewish girl in Italy. So our main girl is little Leah, and her main concerns in life are building sandcastles and maybe overcoming her little shyness. Those are her big issues in life, but that all changes when Prime Minister Mussolini joins forces with Hitler in World War II, and life becomes suddenly at a much different pace. So little Leah with her family kind of has to go into hiding. So she ends up going around the city. At one point, she ends up in a convent with nuns being hidden from Nazis, and her father goes missing. So there's a lot of drama. And what makes this book, in my opinion, so special is the fact that it's told from the point of view of little Leah. So from that childhood perspective that still wants to cling to joy and childhood happiness, but unfortunately things out of her control are making life so much more sobering. I really like this quote from acclaimed author Lois Lowry talking about this book. She says, Leah Levy's voice, spunky, outspoken, and innocent, reminds us of what was lost and what was learned during the war. So I really think that's true. And I also, what this book really imprinted on me was how, the little sweet images, like this book has illustrations in it, but they're just so innocent looking. There's, like childhood sweetness, but it's of a very dark topic. So it's a interesting mix of the two. I think it's well worth your time to check it out. This, really touching chapter of a little girl's life in a dark time.
And that one falls into more middle grade, right?
You're right. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I forgot to mention that. Yeah, it's more geared toward middle grade, but I think anyone of any age can find it very impactful.
Yeah, I asked because I know I had a few that I liked as well that were in the middle grade category, and that's the first one I have to talk about. So the first one that I have actually won the Newbery Medal, which is for a distinguished contribution to children's literature. Okay. And it also won the Coretta Scott King Author Award for an African-American author. So twice awarded here. But this book is also historical fiction, and it is a middle grade novel, which we don't usually talk about on here, but I think, this is a double award winner, and it is a good selection for really anyone to read. And, I think that both of us have read middle grade novels that have really stood out to us as well as adults. And I think there's no reason why grownups can't read these too. But so this book is about Homer and his little sister Ada, who have, under the cover of night, fled from the only home they've ever known, which is the Southerland plantation. And this is where they have left behind their beloved mother, who they got separated from while trying to escape the plantation in the middle of the night. And she is caught because they are runaway slaves. So Homer and Ada keep on their path to try to find someplace safe, because Homer knows his mother would be disappointed if they tried to turn around, because they would inevitably be caught by the overseer. And so they stay on their path and they find themselves in Freewater, which is a hidden community of escaped slaves. They're deep in the swamp. There, the young children are welcomed and they're taught some new survival techniques, some ways to help keep them safe and free. And they even meet some other Black children who were born free and have never been slaves. And there's that huge difference between the two of them about that sort of mindset of what their lives are. Homer and Ada have not had a lot of time to play and be children. And these kids that they meet really have been raised completely differently. They identify a lot with some of the adults who are there, who are protecting them and helping them. And they even see some familiar faces that they remember from their plantation. And they're not 100% trusting of seeing these people. But so there's also the larger issue that despite being freer than they have ever been, they still know that they left behind their mother. And so they want to try to go back for her, but with bounty hunters out looking for them as well as other escaped slaves, the danger is just enormous. And it feels like they're closing in, even in this very safe haven of Freewater for them. This is a realistic book, but it's not too graphic, which is why it's sort of geared towards the middle grade kids, because it doesn't go into a lot of the harsh realities that we as adults know of from slavery, but it does give a very open and honest view of that mindset from the child's eye. And it has a really interesting cast of characters, all from sort of different areas and different plantations and different situations in life, some who were free and captured as adults, and some who, as I said, the kids who were raised free, and gives a completely different perspective to the story by having so many different characters. And it also is realistic of a lot of similar communities that existed, a lot of these sort of swamp Freewater communities like this. So I think it's really educational, but it's an interesting story as well. And you'll be rooting for Homer as well.
Oh, well, sounds wonderful. Yeah. And young middle grade, young adult books are some of my favorite books to read for his important historical fiction, because you have to distill it, so younger people can, understand it and still learn from it. So I think that sounds like a great book as well.
Yeah.
So my next book is one of the winners, so is the Alex Award. And the Alex Award gives an award to 10 different books each year. And this one is for a book that was written for an adult audience, but they think it would be good for teenagers. So I think that's a cool topic. So it's not, originally wasn't written with teens in mind, but teens will still love these books. So it's called Solito by Javier Zamora. And it's another book about a young child going through a dark experience. So he has to travel from El Salvador to the United States at the age of 9 to reunite with his parents after being separated. So I love this book because it's actually a memoir. So it's a true story of the author's childhood. And the author, I think, is around 31 years old now, and he's a poet for a living. So that right off the bat just gives a very lyrical and beautiful quality to the writing. I that was immediately striking to me in this book. And then also his, but it's told through his memories as a 9-year-old. So he goes off with this group of other migrants. So he doesn't know anyone, like everyone is a stranger to him. And they're led over what he originally thinks is going to be just a 2-week journey to reunite with his parents in Arizona. But it turns out to be a 7-week journey because there's a lot of bumps along the way, and they have to go through the desert in Mexico. They run into some, characters who, their lives in danger. So it's very fraught with peril, but it's very inspiring to see how Javier deals with this, the fortitude he has, and kind of learns to grow up fast. But he said in an interview after the book, what pulled him was really the optimism of, I have to see my mother again. I'm going to see my mother again. And that optimism kind of pulled him through. So it's a beautifully written book. It's also beautiful in its description of nature, because they're in the desert a lot. So there's a lot of description of, that beauty of the starkness of the desert, cactus, full moons, how beautiful the sky is at night in the desert. But really, it's just a beautiful story of a boy wanting to be with his family again, and going to great lengths, over 3,000 miles, to accomplish that. So very inspiring, but very fast paced, almost like a thrilling suspense. Like, is he gonna, how is he gonna get there to see them again? So it was great.
Oh, I think that sounds really interesting. And I do love the Alex Awards, because I think that they tend to have some really unique choices that you might not have thought to highlight for teens in the past, which is awesome.
Right.
All right. My next one is the Teen Award for the Schneider Family Book Award, which is given for the portrayal of disability in literature. And this is called The Words We Keep by Erin Stewart. So Lily is a straight A student, very well behaved, and to everyone around her seems like she has it all. But she's really struggling right now. A few months ago, she found her sister Alice after an attempted suicide on the bathroom floor. And since then, she has really been traumatized by both that experience and sort of how it reflects on her as a person, as her sister, and what that means for her. She doesn't really want to be branded in some way as related to that, but she still loves her sister, but she's struggling with understanding her. And since that as well, her sister Alice has been in a facility for mental health to try to help her get over the trauma that caused her to get to that point. But Lily has been focusing instead on trying to do everything perfect. She wants to be the best she can be, sort of as a way of making up for Alice's situation, as well as kind of having control over her own situation in life. And this is hard because, she's really pushing herself farther than she needs to. And no one's really asking this of her. This is really a self-imposed kind of thing. And she's got these sort of like negative thoughts about herself and what other people are thinking of her and how she's not doing enough in life. And she's terrified as well of being affected by whatever illness it is that has caused her sister to be in the same situation. And so she has a lot going on inside, like inner turmoil. And so when she is paired up with Micah, who has a sort of reputation himself, he has this determination to kind of help her, whether she likes it or not, because Micah really is understanding of the situation that she and her family are in, because he very recently was at the same facility that Alice is at. And he struggled with his own mental health situation, and he has much more understanding for what Lily's going through than others around her. But she really wants to try to keep, school and her home life separate, doesn't really want to admit that there's any problems, but things are getting increasingly worse as it gets closer and closer to the time when Alice is going to come home. And Lily is really getting into a very difficult mental health spiral of sorts. And he recognizes these struggles right away, even if she refuses to admit to them. And he tries to help her get through this. And as she sort of gets worse, she finds solace in poetry and this project she's working on with Micah and bonding with him. So this is not necessarily an easy read, because it does deal with depression and anxiety, suicidal thoughts, things like that are not necessarily topics that we really want to think a lot about. But can be quite relatable and necessary to talk about, especially to some teens who may be struggling themselves with a lot of this inner turmoil, anxiety, depression, those kind of things, and some different mental health issues. And so it could be quite relatable to them, even if they don't necessarily want to admit it. And I think that this book also really emphasizes the importance of surrounding yourself with people who are there for you and understanding and wanting to help you. She has a very understanding family as well who wants to try and get their family back together. So it's not exactly what you might think of when you hear about the Schneider Award in portrayal of disability, but I think that especially in recent years, this has definitely become more of a topic when we talk about disability, and something that teens and adults can very easily connect with.
Wow. Yeah, that sounds great. And, we talk a lot about, seeing yourself in books and literature. So, like you said, whether you admit it or not, maybe you can find help and, seeing someone struggle with something like that in a book and taking solace in that. I also love what you said about, the family togetherness of it. You can maybe want to draw yourself in when you're dealing with those issues, but having people around you, like you said. And I think that sounds like that story really highlights that. So that is beautiful. All right. Thank you guys so much for joining us for our version of the Oscars, I suppose, covering the winners of the ALA Youth Media Awards. There's a lot more that we didn't have time to mention today. So if you go to ALA's website, you can see all the list of winners and nominees. If you're ever looking for an idea of something to read after you watch our videos, go to their website and check that out.
Yes, definitely. And check out some of the past award winners as well. There's just a great collection of books out there that have won these awards over the years, and great to experience different topics. There's a lot of these great titles out there for us. So thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time. Happy reading.